This is Film Talk, where we interview the brightest minds in filmmaking 5 days a week. Do you need a great camera for your next shoot? You may want to consider the world's lightest handheld Super 35 digital film camera, Blackmagic's Ursa Mini 4.6K. The Ursa Mini boasts a 4.6K sensor, global shutter, and up to 15 stops of dynamic range. It's perfectly balanced for handheld use and comfortable enough to be used all day long. Scene one, take one. Film Talk Nation, we are greenlit for yet another great show. Vanessa Frank here, and I'm excited to bring you our featured guest today, Ash Greyson. Ash, are you ready for your close-up?
as long as it's just on the radio, sure. Yeah.
Ash Greyson is the founder of Ribbo Media Group, where he has led the digital strategy for numerous film releases, including 2016 Obama's America, God's Not Dead, The Giver, Earth to Echo, and the #1 box office hit, War Room. Ash is an innovator, a change maker, and an expert in helping companies transition to the digital universe, as well as a frequent speaker on the subject of emerging trends in digital marketing. Previously, Ash helmed one of the most high-traffic religious websites as editor-in-chief of BeliefNet.com, during which time the website saw traffic skyrocket more than 400% through SEO optimization and strategic social media partnerships. In addition, as a director and producer, Ash has collaborated on many music videos with artists such as Grammy Award winner Weird Al Yankovic and Oscar-nominated Gus Van Sant. His work as director also includes the documentary film Strong Enough to Break about the Grammy-nominated group Hanson. And Ash's past and present clients for digital marketing include Lionsgate, Affirm Films, Echolight Studios, Sony Pictures, Walden Media, Paramount, Focus Features, and the Weinstein Company. Ash is truly one of the world's brightest minds in film digital marketing. Ash, it's an honor to have you on the show today.
Wow, that was quite an introduction. That sounds important. Oh, I really know. I'm wearing a bacon shirt right now, just for the record.
I can quite envisage that. Well, Ash, I'm just so excited. I'm so excited to have you on today because I know I've had the opportunity several times to hear you speak. And for me, you've always been the most interesting guy in the room by far. I feel
Oh,
that,
thank you.
I feel that for a lot of our audience, um, this whole area of digital marketing is something that a few years ago they didn't have to contend with. As a filmmaker or producer, it just wasn't really part of the landscape. So I think having you on today to explain some of these concepts and really some of these emerging fields is going to be a great benefit to all of us. So I know that obviously you've had a very atypical entry into the world of film marketing. Maybe you can take us back even before that into how you first got involved with digital marketing, full stop.
Oh yeah. So yeah, if anybody's Googling my name right now, they're kind of like, what? Where'd this guy come from? What on earth? Yeah, I backed into this space, right? I backed into it from the production side, where there was a time I was, working with a band Hanson back in the day when they were big. I got some amazing credits underneath me, not because I was doing anything. That was great. I just pointed a camera at Hanson when they were like world famous. So of course, I've got the #1 best-selling video of all time. Well, not because of anything I did. I just happened to point a camera at them when they were super hot. And from that space, I started getting a lot of offers to do music videos. And then I run into John and Andy Irwin, who at the time it was so apparent to me that they were so infinitely more talented than me in that space. So I was like, yeah, so I'm never going to be that. And it was really at that point where I started thinking more about the marketing side, really from the perspective of a guy who hated marketing. I hated that there was such a lack of empathy for the audience from the marketers. And my DNA was just perfect for when social came on the scene, because I'm a guy who loves people first and data second. So I always tease, I'm the guy who will walk into a party and write an algorithm on how to best hug you, right? So when you put that in the social space, it's really perfect for marketing, because we start from a place of pathological empathy. We can't help but care about the audience, right? We're not trying to just make the producer happy. We're working with them or the studio. We're fighting for the audience. We want to care about them and what they want. We tried that one time when I was just trying to company, me, and did a political movie, 2016 Obama's America. And we did it largely because the producers were friends, and a lot of people don't know that Jerry Mullen, who produced that movie, also produced a little movie called Schindler's List, Jurassic Park. The list goes on. So we took that gig, and that was real successful. And then we didn't work another movie until God's Not Dead. So when you go 2 for 2, and it's your first 2, you get some attention from people. So from there, it's been kind of a meteoric rise, as they would say.
In terms of that concept of being pathologically empathetic towards the audience
Yep.
and fighting for that audience, do you feel that that's something that many producers that you meet with have not incorporated into their creative decisions early enough in the process, in terms of, the material they're choosing to develop, the properties that they're kind of placing on their slate?
Yeah. So I think we are all on some level delusional, right? We all think we're Steve Jobs or George Lucas or Steven Spielberg, and we're not, right? So Steve Jobs would say, well, the audience doesn't really know what they want. People don't know what they want. I know what they want, right? And he was right? He nailed it. He saw this stuff coming. Most of us aren't like that. I'm certainly not. So I find out too often producers, writers, they go into like this, and coming from the music business, it was the same way. Instead of saying, what does the audience want, right? What are they yearning for? They're like, I'm going to go into my dark corner and I'm going to make my art. And then I'm going to hand it to a marketer to take my art and try to find an audience for it. I think that's backwards. I mean, that totally works for, again, if you're George Lucas, you can do that, or you're Steven Spielberg, you can do that. But for most of us, that just doesn't work. We need to be writing for a specific audience. We need to be producing for a specific audience, because it's so much harder to take what's in your head and your art that's pleasing you and try to find a big audience for it when you weren't thinking about that audience to begin with.
Does it concern you, the idea of kind of reverse marketing, kind of reverse engineering the audience, which I know there's, increasingly some agencies that are focused around, at script stage. Is that something that concerns you, or do you kind of feel like maybe that's part of the future filmmaking?
I think it's both. I think it's concerning in the future, and something that's comparable would be a company like Pandora Radio. So Pandora has an algorithm, and that algorithm decides what to play you based on input from you. Now, done irresponsibly, that creates a cycle where you only hear the same type of stuff and nothing else gets introduced. What people don't understand about Pandora is it's not a computer program. They have an entire floor of PhD level musicologists that are helping input that. So it's not just computers. It's the same way me, as a parent of 6 kids and 7th coming, I have to feed my kids, right? Well, what do my kids want? My kids probably just want chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. But as a responsible parent, outside of just pleasing them, I can introduce new things to them. So I actually have a 6-year-old. If you ask him what his favorite food in the world is, he'll say broccoli, right? So there's a difference between serving the audience what they want, but at the same time introducing them to new things that they may not have thought of. So I find that the question is a great one. We don't just want to crank out the same stuff, but we do need to look at what the audience wants, input it, and then kind of iterate and evolve and push things forward. Because when you see movies that go too far forward, you leave the audience behind. You're like, whoa, I wasn't ready for that. I didn't take the jump from macaroni and cheese to broccoli. I mixed them together, right? I had broccoli and cheese. See, so that's the responsible way to do it.
Do you know of maybe some interesting solutions to this that are emerging in the tech space?
Well, so that's a great question in that everybody thinks that there's a technical solution for this. Everyone thinks there's a magic button. I mean, every proposal I get asked for, or every meeting I'm in to pitch, I'm asked, what do you have that's proprietary, right? And my answer is nothing, right? Because if it was some proprietary thing, then anybody who got that thing could do what you do. So there will not be technology to solve any of these problems. What it's going to take is artists moving from creating art into the marketing space. And that's what I feel our shop is. I always say data is paint and we are artists. We use industry best ingredients to make really good, tasty food. I mean, think about it, Vanessa. If you're going to get your hair done and someone said, well, the reason I can give you a much better haircut is because I have secret scissors that no one else has. You would say you're crazy. It's like, let me see some styles that you've put together. I don't care what you use to cut it with. I really want to see what I'm going to look like afterwards and what kind of artist you are with hair. So it's not a technological solution. It's going to be this a tool of technology in the hand of an artist that's going to solve it.
That's a fascinating answer, Ash. I know that you've had a very, very diverse career. Maybe in terms of your film marketing work, I'd love to know what is the biggest challenge you've encountered so far in this phase of your career, and how have you turned that situation around?
Oh, well, that's easy. I mean, the biggest challenge is that in what I do, which is digital and audience focused, and we have a young baby company. I've only been doing this 3 years. So, but when I started, 10 to 20% of all traffic was from mobile phones. And when you pull the numbers this January, it's probably going to be 70%. So the business is constantly changing. So I had to either become an expert in Facebook in one little vertical niche that I could kind of keep up with, or I could hire a bunch of young people that are smarter than me, that know all the different things and constantly learning new things, constantly growing my company a little bit at a time, but always adding new expertise as the audience evolves. I mean, think about it. When I started Ribbo, Snapchat wasn't even a thing, right? It just changes so rapidly. Somewhere in a dark corner is like some guy stuck in his phone that figured out how to market on MySpace and then lost it all. Whatever, It just
Exactly.
changes so fast.
You know what, I often wonder about that. These people have made their millions on a platform that then from one day to another just disappears. It's a pretty scary thought. Um,
Yep.
so Ash, what is one thing that you wish you'd known earlier in your career?
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, I think what I wish I would have known earlier is that the audience is always right. I think you can look at data. I mean, I have learned a lot from my successes, but even more from my misses, right? As it relates specifically to theatrical marketing, I wish I would have known and realized how hard it is to get somebody who loves something, even, right, from their couch to the box office. I mean, that is a journey. It's not a click, it's not a play, it's not a share, it's a journey. And I need to walk with them, find the babysitter, whatever I can do. It is much harder than it seems when, especially me, we start off first 2 movies, home runs, everybody came, right? Then you start working on these movies like, look, we have 5 million trailer views and it's organic and it's on fire. And then crickets, nobody came. What's the difference? Well, one group wanted to go buy 10 tickets for their friend's opening night. The other group were like, man, this looks great. In 6 months, I'll put it in my Netflix queue.
Do
So
you do you feel do you
that's been
feel
a hard lesson.
do you feel that VOD has compounded that issue?
Sure. I mean, the fact that the windows are shortening, which they've always fought against, right? The windows are shortening means um, even as a frequent moviegoer, gosh, I really want to see this. It's not going to be so deeply experiential that I need to see it in a theater this weekend. So maybe I'll go next weekend or the next weekend. Oh, well, now it's going to be, oh, look, it's on. I travel a lot. So a lot of these movies end up in the hotel 4 weeks later. You know, you can rent it for $20 in your hotel. That absolutely has an effect.
From a marketing standpoint, how do you feel about day and date releases?
Uh, well, how crazy can I be here? I mean, I, I'm going to say some crazy stuff right now. So I
Go
think
for
everything
it.
should be a day and date. I think everything should be a day and date release, right? And I think if you look at theaters throughout the week, I haven't seen this year's numbers. We had a couple big hits this year, so the numbers may change a little bit. They won't be far off of this. 93% of the theater seats are empty in a given week, right? It's crazy. I think everything should be day and date, and it should be surge pricing. So if I want to watch um, Star Wars at home, maybe it's $1,000 opening weekend because I'm willing to pay for it. Maybe those theater seats should be like Uber, right? And they start at $1, and then you bid to get them, right? So fear of missing out. I just think there needs to be a massive disruption because we are spending way too much money to get way too few people out. And then a lot of that value on the digital side happens on DVD or television or Netflix. There's so much innovation and disruption that needs to happen, and it's going to happen in the theatrical business. And I think a day and date is where stuff really is going to have to move because think about it. If I really want to watch something on Friday, but we've already established I've got all these kids, I can't go watch it on Friday, but I can put my kids to bed and I can rent it for $75. Guess what? That's cheaper than me going out to watch it with my kids, right? and I can opt in if I want to buy it, then I can. It's very similar. My beautiful wife Mindy used to be the manager of a little boutique shop, and I won't say the name because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But it's a boutique chain, and she had a bunch of customers that were willing to be the first to wear something. So they would come in and they would pay $100 for what's amounted to like a bedazzled T-shirt to be the first person to have it. 6 or 8 weeks later, that's on the clearance rack for $10. Right? They just wanted to be the first to have it. They wanted to be a tastemaker. I think the movie industry is going to have to evolve into something more like that to survive, at least theatrically.
Ash,
So there you go.
I'm definitely inclined to agree with you. I think it's just going to be a very interesting process to get exhibitors to agree with us.
I think it's so too. I
Yeah,
mean, but think about 93% of their seats are empty. They're empty,
yeah.
right? And then on the studio side, you got to get them to agree on some different financial models because no one wants to sell that ticket for $1 whenever the theater gets to keep the $17 for the popcorn and soda money. So, but something's got to give.
Absolutely. Something has definitely got to give. Ash, I know that you're a very busy man. As you mentioned, you have 6 kids, and am I right in thinking a seventh on the way?
You bet, yeah.
Yes, and you've got a big staff, you've got a lot of movies on your slate. Those are a lot of balls to be juggling at once. What daily practices do you do that contribute to your personal success?
Um, well, I mean, first off, every day I wake up next to my wife makes me a better person. So I got that going for me. I mean, she's fantastic and allows me to do all this craziness. But other than that, I think something that I try to practice and imperfect on, that every filmmaker, every marketer, everybody is, as a guy of faith, I believe like God's mercies are made new every day. So I try to do that same type of attitude. So when I get up tomorrow morning, I got a client that I just got off the phone with. Boy, they were a pain, and it was going to be tough. But you know what? Tomorrow, I'm not going to carry the baggage of that conversation or that interaction, and I'm going to serve them anew. right? The same way if you're a filmmaker and you're on a set and your key grip's having a bad day and he's cranky and da-da-da-da, guy's a problem. If you wake up the next day to walk on set and go, that guy's going to be a problem again, probably is. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So for me, I'm like, hey, if I can have that same, grace and mercy that's extended anew every day to me and how I live, if I could try to do that for all the people I'm working with and serving, maybe they'll be lifted up versus me looking like, oh, here they go, they're going to do it again. I know that's kind of like totally spiritual and not practical, but that's about all I can think of. I mean, I get up every day thinking something we do today could change the world. So that's how we operate up here.
I think that's extremely wise in an industry that is so prone to offenses and just obviously a lot of disappointments. I think being able to keep a clean slate and not get bitter is just a crucial component of being able to have a sustainable career. Um, Ash, I know that this is somewhat the $1,000,000 question, but I feel that the audience is going to despise me if I don't ask it of you while you're here on the line. If, as a producer, as a director, what is one shortcut or hack that can be employed to build the best audience online possible in terms of growing that fan base pre the release of a movie?
It's and I've already stated it, and it sounds obtuse, but it's that pathological empathy.
Yeah.
You have to approach the relationship with one of service. People, I don't care if you're a person of faith, I don't care if you're an atheist, you want to be served, not sold. And in everything you do, if you think about that first. So what happens after you serve somebody? They're open to anything you may ask of them. So if don't be the guy that the only time that you call me is when you want to borrow my truck because you're moving, right? Be the guy that takes me to lunch every once in a while. We talk, we're friends. And then when you move, I'm going to say, I'm going to offer my truck. Hey, I'm moving. Oh, I've got a truck. Let's do it. That same relationship, that we have as humans is scalable to, marketer and audience and product and audience. And I think a lot of people forget that. They just get panicky and it's all about sell, 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 sell. I mean, the content calendars I get from so many people in the social space, like, here's what we would like to do socially. Buy a widget, buy a widget, buy a widget. Hey, it's National Donut Day. What a great day to buy a widget. It's like, come on.
So what does this practically, what does this look like? Does it look like a lot of free content, or kind of break it down
pretty easy, right? So you go look at somebody like a John Green, who's an author, who's had some successful movies now. He spent, or even like a Dane Cook back in the day on MySpace. These guys spent more time talking to the audience than they did making stuff to sell to the audience. They did. Go back and look at it. Look at how John Green started 8 years ago on YouTube with doing a video blog with his brother. And he spent more time talking with people and cultivating it than he did making something to sell them. So work the audience, find them. Dane Cook spent 22 hours a day friending people on MySpace, literally. You go back, but if you show up on the scene to sell somebody something, like my favorite marketing fails are always on Reddit, because someone will show up on Reddit, because Reddit has immense power when they want to get behind something. However, you can't go in as a marketer, because you will get crushed and they'll probably ruin your credit too. If you come in with something silly, you try to market it, they'll kill you. So there's a couple of practical examples, or Dane Cook back in the day, and then John Green. Those are real, modern examples. And then in the faith space, if you look at like someone like Alex and Stephen Kendrick, who, they went around and screamed that movie over and over and over and over, right? They were pastors talking to pastors with a tool that they created, which was a hammer to nail a certain topic to the church. So.
And I know in the example of the Kendrick brothers, they created a massive number of very high value ancillary materials, be they sermon
Yep.
notes or kind of spin off products that were of real use for that audience, to where, for a pastor, it wasn't just a question of, hey, here's another movie to take our audience to, but an entire syllabus program that actually was going to really benefit them and make their job a whole lot easier as a pastor.
Yep. You got it.
Well, Ash, we're about to enter our final act in which we're going to be getting some of your top recommendations. But before we do so,
Oh, great.
let's take a moment to thank our sponsors. When you're putting together that masterpiece movie, the coloring is a major creative decision. It can make the difference between whether the audience interprets your story as warm, cold, dark, or light, and it can help define the genre of the film. Here's a quick tip. Horror movies tend to have blue tones, romantic comedies tend to have warm tones, apocalyptic movies tend to be grey and washed out, movies in which reality is off kilter tend to have green tones, and action movies tend to feature a lot of teal and orange, particularly in their artwork. The Emmy Award winning Da Vinci Resolve from Blackmagic will help you get that perfect color for your next production. The Da Vinci Resolve 12 combines professional non-linear video editing with the world's most advanced color corrector, so you can now edit, color correct, finish, and deliver all from one system. The DaVinci Resolve is completely scalable and resolution independent, so it can be used on set, in a small studio, or integrated into the largest Hollywood production pipeline. From creative editing and multi-camera television production to high-end finishing and color correction, only DaVinci Resolve features the creative tools, compatibility, speed, and legendary image quality that you need to manage your entire workflow, which is why it is the #1 solution used on Hollywood feature films. Ash, welcome to the final act where you'll be sharing some incredible resources and mind-blowing answers. Are you ready?
Mind blowing. I don't know. It's a lot of pressure.
I know you can bring it. So, Ash, what
I'll
is the
give it a whirl.
best what's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh man, the best advice I ever received. What's really interesting. I'm not sure it would count as advice. Um, my my sweet grandpa told me once. He said, I came in. I was feeling pretty good about myself after something. He goes, "Remember, sometimes when you're the smartest, you think you're the smartest guy, and then you might just be the least stupid." So I've always brought that with me, like And then the other thing that actually is great advice. He's he said, I was upset about something. He said, are you wanting to fight fire with fire? And I said, well, yeah, I want to fight that. He goes, you know how you put out the fire? Water. Fight fire with water. And that's often how we respond to stuff digitally when clients have an issue. Instead of saying we're going to fight fire with fire, we're going to fight fire with water. Like, let's construct a campaign to put out the fire. Right? So I think that's kind of universal advice.
Sounds like your grandfather was a very wise man.
He
Um,
was definitely wise.
Ash, if you only had one movie to stake your entire career on to build a marketing campaign around, what kind of movie would it be and what talent would you want attached?
That's really interesting. I think what I would love, because we've done a lot of niche movies, and they've been really, really fun. We've worked on some big movies too, but I would love is the chance to do like an Avengers type of movie, and show that you got a big cast, you have all the things, and treat it instead of like a 4-quadrant blast the world movie. Treat it with an all digital grassroots and up campaign without any television, without any billboards, without any of the traditional placements, and prove that if you have a big movie like that, you can actually deliver huge, massive box office by just going straight to the people that will come. Because what's really interesting, and a lot of people just don't understand this, in order to get $100 million opening weekend on a big movie like that, you only need to convince 5 million people to come and drag someone with them. Yet we go to all these campaigns and you see them spending so much money on television. You look at a movie like American Sniper, and they're spending 30 and 40 and 50 and $60 million on television. I'm not against television, but I just think for a movie like a superhero movie where there's pre-awareness, people are excited. I would love to work on a campaign where they just turned off all the usual stuff and we could prove that there was a different way to do it.
I would
So if
love to
anyone
see that
listening wants to give
campaign.
us a shot.
I was gonna say, Hollywood, you've been invited. This is your wake up call. So Ash, if you could recommend one book for our listeners, what would it be and why?
Well, I mean, I think there's a ton of like books that probably always get recommended, but a book, everybody talks about The Tipping Point, but like a book that came out for The Tipping Point I really like is that I think has a universal from advertising to marketing to screenwriting is a book called Made to Stick. Um, I think it's Why Some Ideas Survive and Others Die. It's a Chip and Dan Heath, I think. A super interesting book that kind of explains, there's a lot of research, a lot of evidence in there, but it's also very readable of why some things work and some things don't. And if you've already read The Tipping Point, which you should have, kind of anybody in any business probably should read that. But then it's a great follow-up that I think has kind of universal, it's like the song Let It Go. You can apply whatever narrative you want into it and make it work. But it's called Made to Stick. And that's probably the one that I like the most, that is on the least people's radar that I talk to.
I have not even heard of that one, but I'm definitely going to be getting a hold of it. And The Tipping Point, for the very, very, very few people who are unaware of this, is authored by Seth Godin and is definitely a book they should check out. And Film Talk Nation, I know that you love audio. To thank you for joining us today, we've partnered with our friends over at Audible to offer you a free audiobook. Great titles available include Story by Robert McKee, Save the Cat Strikes Back by Blake Snyder, Why Not Me by Mindy Kaling, and Your Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. If you haven't already done so, you can claim your free audiobook at audibletrial.com/film talk. That's audibletrial.com/film talk. And this link will also be included in today's show notes. So Ash, if you could recommend a single movie for our listeners, what would it be and why?
Well, I mean, there's a whole lot of movies that you could recommend. Like for me personally, the movie Good Will Hunting, best original script. I mean, the character Will has a lot of similarities to me in my life. I mean, I literally was a janitor at one point that did math equations. So, that's a very personal one, and that shows up on a lot of people's lists. But one that probably doesn't is a movie, 1976 called Network. And it's got a great script, a great score, a really solid cast: Faye Dunaway, Peter Finch, Robert Duvall. There's just one amazing scene in it that if that movie was out today, it would be, blowing up on Facebook that opening weekend. It's R-rated, so throw that out there. But a movie not a lot of people, especially younger people, have seen. It's a really great movie that's like a lot of kind of social commentary on the media and entertainment business and the news cycle. So Network, it's like a satire, but not necessarily a straight up comedy. It's got one of the great speeches of all time. I don't want to spoil it, because if I gave a line, everyone would know what it was. But you probably know part of the speech. You probably don't know it's from that movie.
I can absolutely see that Network would be a particularly good fit for you, because indeed it does deal with this whole issue of public perception and manipulation of audiences and trust of audiences. And I
Yeah.
think for me, the crazy thing watching that movie was realizing to what extent, probably when it was made, it seemed kind of a crazy idea that was being put forth. And the alarming thing is, watching it today, it's actually pretty much what we are indeed seeing in the media, which is,
Yeah.
for me, I found that kind of alarming. Like, wow, like 3 decades ago, this was unfathomable. And today, in our era of, the Kardashians, this is all like just a typical Friday. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think for anyone who has an interest in marketing or any kind of TV production, it's an absolute must watch with some great performances. So Ash, I realize this next question I'm going to ask you is it's kind of like just my gosh, like going down the rabbit hole with someone of your caliber. But is there maybe, and I know this is going to be really tough to restrict this down to just one item, but is there a website or an app that you use frequently that you feel, I mean, obviously in your line of work that you feel is just kind of the go-to platform?
Well, there's all kinds of tools that Google can give you, but what I'd like to do is talk about some of the stuff that most people don't even know is out there.
Yeah, go for it.
Uh, for instance, if you're writing a screenplay, right, and you're looking for inspiration, well, a lot of people don't know on the Kindle website for Amazon, you can actually search for the most popular highlighted phrases from different books. So if you want to know what's connecting with an audience, look at some similar books and see what's the most highlighted things. Now, if you're not logged in and opted in to share your highlights, it's anonymized, but it's also tracked and available, right? So you can see what people were connecting with in stories,
Is there
what
demo
lines were pivotal.
is there
This is
demographic
free.
is there demographic information that's connected to that, like age range, location?
Well, I mean, that would require that would require a real nerd like us to get in. So that you would have to dig really deep in to get. But as a general like inspiration, that's something that a lot of people don't realize is out there. Like you can look at the most highlighted phrases from almost any book, especially popular books. The other thing that I would say is available to people that they don't know is if you have a credit card, you can start a Facebook advertising account, right? That's all you need. You don't need to commit to spend a lot of money. Some ad units are $1 a day, some of them are $5 a day. And you don't have to spend any money to get access to their research tools. So you can come in and say, okay, I'm going to do a movie. Here's my 5 comparable movies. And you add those in and you say, well, my movie's really only for people that are going to be faith people. So you can add that in. And all of a sudden, without having to pay a big research firm, you can get this demographic research of who you're writing for. So if you're starting with that pathological empathy for the audience, you can see the audience size, right? Because you don't want to write a movie for like, oh, there's 11 people in Des Moines who are going to love this. And that's a tool that like it feels like a rabbit hole. It's not hard. I mean, almost anybody can start with the top level stuff. I mean, we get super granular and have all kinds of data being input to it. But if you just came up with the idea of, I want to write a movie that's like this, but for people that have this behavior or live here or this age, Facebook for free will kick you back that information. They don't give you a list of their home addresses or anything, but you can get that information like, hey, there's a market size of 3,868,000 people. And I can tell you, as a guy who's starting to invest some in movies, I don't want to see another pitch deck full of stuff that of this movie made $38,000 bajillion dollars, and if you did this, I mean, that doesn't mean anything. What I want to see when someone pitches me is what's the potential audience that you are writing this for, or that you are producing this for. And if you know what's it cost to get to them, maybe you don't know that, you need someone else, but there's no reason you shouldn't know the people you can get to, and not some fantasy number that you Googled and it says there's 180 million evangelicals, and so that's my audience. That doesn't mean anything. That's, to me, that's the same as saying my audience is people who are breeding.
I think what's very interesting to me about both of those resources that you've suggested is that those are both resources for the development stage, which I find particularly remarkable because typically the stage that you're at, marketing, is the very last stage of the process. And I think that this is really a nod towards the fact that people need to be thinking about their marketing before going into production. I mean, before greenlighting a script, this is something that needs to be considered before someone gets carried away with an idea, but very pragmatically based in, in research and just some very level-headed study of that market.
Yeah. I mean, again, we help people do this all the time. Like, there's one film that's, about a certain thing I shouldn't talk about since, but we help them say, hey, here's the size of that market as far as who you can get to. Anything else is that potential size of a market, right? So if it's just because someone buys running shoes doesn't mean they're a runner, right? So you need to know how many people can you get in front of over a certain amount of time. And that's a lot of the stuff that we do when we do our kind of diligence and research.
So are you increasingly finding clients coming to you in those early stages to help to work out what that qualified audience is?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we're actually like everybody always wants a name for what you do. It's different. So that's when you come up with these kind of wild, crazy marketing terms that don't mean anything. But we're kind of positioning ourselves. Our wild, crazy term is custom audience aggregation. So the idea being, we have all the comparables of movies, but we need to go look inside of those people and see who can we get interested in your project. We shouldn't assume that they just are, right? So we're going to go aggregate people that are interested, and approach each project anew versus, especially in the faith market, each project just let's hammer the exact same database, right? Let's hammer the exact same people with the exact same message. Honk if you love Jesus for this movie. It just doesn't work. I mean, look at all the movies that are coming up. There's going to be 15 faith movies next year. Well, if you don't try to curate, aggregate's really a wrong word. Curation is really custom audience curation. If you don't try to curate an audience, you're just going to hit the same people over and over, right? The same people over and over and over with kind of the same message, only insert movie title here. We just don't think that works, you know?
Ash, this is fascinating. I could spend a week listening to you teach about this, truly. It is time, though, for the martini shot. What parting piece of guidance do you want to share with us?
Well, we're having this painted on our wall here in the office, and I actually saw it on Twitter. So when you see something on Twitter, you never really know who the source is, right? But it's how you probably heard me say before, it's how we work. So we start with empathy, right? Continue with utility. So it means you got to care, right? Then you have to add some value to somebody. Then you improve with analysis, right? So you have to look at what you've done, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and then you optimize with love, right? So as hippie as it sounds, like everyone's like, what's your secret sauce? Really, that's it. That quote is it. Start with empathy, continue with utility, improve with analysis, and optimize with love. I mean, that's how we treat everything we do. The smallest clients, the biggest clients, the proposals that win, the proposals that lose. I just think if everybody did that, everything would be better. So I'm like the world's biggest hippie marketer right now. Can't wait to stall a hug. Come on.
That is a wonderful formula for success, Ash. Well, that's a wrap. Film Talk Nation, in this industry, you're only as good as the people you know. And today you've been hanging out with Ash Greyson and myself. If you want to go the extra mile, head over to filmtalkpodcast.com and type Ash Greyson into the search bar. The show notes from today's show will appear along with everything we discussed, like Ash's recommended book and movie. Ash, we appreciate you sharing your priceless insight with us today. Film Talk Nation thanks you, and we'll see you on the red carpet.
Thank you.